morning students, how are you all? I hope you all are doing great. So today students, we will be taking up your next poem, that is Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Now before starting students, let me tell you something about this author. Now Pablo Neruda was the pen name of Chilean writer and he was also a politician. His real name is Neftali Richardo Reyes Bosalto. Okay, now this poet's work have been translated into many languages and he had great influence during 20th century. Okay, so Pablo Neruda is considered students one of the greatest and most influential poet of 20th century, and in 1971 he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and it was in this year that he had composed this poetry. Okay, now Gabriel Marquez called him the greatest poet of 20th century in any language, and he had contributed a lot to the literature. His poetry had made the difference. Okay, now let me tell you something about this poetry, the theme of this poem. Now this poem, student, is about the necessity of quiet introspection and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. Okay, so as you can see students, in the present day where people have fast lives, people are least concerned about their inner selves, about what is going on inside. Today they have reached a stage, they need to find the cause of the sadness, and this very gap, this very void that has filled a major part of their lives is actually marring their happiest moments. Now here the poet, student, is trying to tell that life, according to him, at that point of time when he composed this poetry, had become all about war and misunderstandings. So perhaps keeping calm, keeping quiet would bring in inner calm, inner peace, and would give us time to reflect about what we are actually doing. Okay, so here the poet, students, advises his readers to break free of their routine by self-introspection, and that is by keeping quiet. Now let us understand this poetry line by line and what it has to offer. Now we'll count to 12 and we'll all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Okay, so the poet says we will all count to 12, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, slowly, and they'll all keep still. Okay, they'll all keep calm. And he says, just for once on this earth, let's not speak in any language. So here, not speaking in any language, he's by saying so, he's trying to suggest that let there be no wars on the name of caste, creed, community, languages, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. Okay, again he has made use of the metaphor. He is asking everyone to stop for a second and not to move our arms so much. By arms, it means there are two meanings. Here the metaphor is used. One, arms means when we make use of our limbs in order to argue. Okay, so he is asking us to stop making arguments, stop fighting for silly and petty reasons. And second is where arms means arms and ammunitions. Okay, so he is saying let's not move our arms, as in let's not wage a war against each other. He is asking countries to stop waging war against each other and let there be no use of arms, ammunitions and weapons. Okay, then in next stanza he says, it would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we'd all be together in a sudden strangeness. Okay, so then he goes on to say that it would be such a moment of calm and unity, and such a rare moment where we would all be without rush. Okay, where we are not hurrying to achieve our goals, where we are not in a rush to get something. Without engines means a modern man's life has become too mechanic to self-introspect or to keep or to enjoy an exotic moment. Okay, so he says he just for a once he wants the entire modern world to be peaceful, to maintain calm, so that this mechanic world then turns a little humane. Okay, we'd all be together in a sudden strangeness. Then he says, if we maintain such calm, if we keep quiet, we all miraculously, we all unanimously would be together. Strangely, we'll all be together, and then we'll start to think, we'll start to realize and let things happen to us. And he is waiting for that exotic moment of calm and unity, which would be rare, and he is urging everyone, that's why, to keep quiet. Okay. Then he says, when everyone will be quiet, what will happen? Let's see in the next stanza. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. So he says that fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. Okay, so by this he is trying to say that all the fishermen who are for their need of for their economic needs have been violent and have been killing fish and whales, would then stop those violent activities and perhaps turn non-violent, because then they'd realize that this is nothing, this is not supposed to be pursued, not to be done. And the man gathering salt would look at its hurt hands. Here again the metaphor is used. Man gathering salt is a modern man who had been rushing for this long, and he would then get a chance to look at the hurt hands. Means he'd then get a chance to self-reflect that how he had not taken care of his body, of his soul, in a pursuit to achieve something. Okay, and he in this process have also hurt himself. Okay, so hurt his hands is that is self-hurting. Gathering salt is an economic activity, or it could be our dreams, goals, etc., etc. So in a life where we do not have a time to even think what we are actually doing, by keeping quiet we would get a time to self-reflect, and then to think that perhaps whatever we have done has ultimately hurt ourselves, because at the end of the day we have not taken care of ourselves. That's why he is asking us to do so. Then in the next paragraph he says, those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. Okay, so he says that all those conquerors, all those kings, politicians, okay, so just like Adolf Hitler and Napoleon Bonaparte, who were really lusty to they really lusted power. Okay, so he says that all those who, in order to establish their supremacy, kill each other and want to conquer lands. Okay, it could be also a modern man who is just cutting forests, cutting trees in order to establish buildings. So this thing he has called as green wars. Again the metaphor used. He says that all those who prepare green wars, that is war against nature. And what are the wars against nature? In order to establish a modern man, in order to establish a modern world, he is cutting what nature has offered him. Okay, so he says all those who have prepared green wars, that is war against nature, wars with gas and wars with fire, that is wars with gas are making use of nuclear weapons. Okay, and wars with fire are of course arms and ammunition, guns and etc. things. So he says all those who want to achieve supremacy over other land, over other country, okay, they do not realize, no, they rather would realize that they are victorious with no survivors. That means they have bartered victory without any human beings. It's like they are victorious, but there is nobody to rule upon. They are the rulers, but there are no masses, no subjects, no humans left. Why? Because they have killed in this entire process of war. Okay, so it's like they are the king, they are the rulers, but there are no masses to them. There are no subjects, there are no humans to be ruled upon. Okay, so that's the irony he has made use of. Would then put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in a shade doing nothing. So he says all these people who've been practicing wars, all the politicians, all the people at power who've been practicing wars, even the modern man, it could be war against nature, war with gas and fire, and also they are the kings of no one. Okay, they're nobody's king, although they are the king. So he says all these people would then give away their lust for power, their lust for bloodshed, and then finally they'd walk about in clean clothes as brothers. So one example could be, say for example, we are waging war against our opposing country, that is Pakistan waging war against India. He imagines that such it would be by keeping quiet we would give away the entire greed and lust to have lands, and then we'd put on clean clothes. Clean clothes here refers to cleansing of mind as well, and would treat each other as brothers, and together we'll walk and sit under the shade enjoying the calm given by nature. So we'd give away to peace, and he imagines that this would be an ideal situation which would consist of happy people walking about in a company of each other, sitting at peace under the shade and realizing their mistakes, and then thinking that probably they should not wage war against each other. Okay, in next stanza he says, what I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. Okay, so he by here says that he's asking readers that if he is asking us to be calm, peaceful and being quiet, it does not mean to be lethargic or to be lazy or totally inactive. All he is wanting is a higher level of existence, is a moment of introspection. However, he is also not wanting death, okay, because for him inactivity or lethargy is equal to death, and he's not wanting that. He's just wanting taking some time off from our busy schedules. He's wanting humanity to do so, and he's wanting humanity to self-reflect so that it reaches a higher level of existence. He is wanting humanity to also give away violence and the greed to rule some other land, so that there is no war, no trucks filled with death. Okay, then it says, if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So he says, if we were not so desperate, okay, single-minded means if we were not so desperate about keeping our lives moving, about keeping on working, okay, one task after another, taking up one thing after another, and not giving time to ourselves, and he's just asking that if only for once we could do nothing and keep quiet. Perhaps he imagines that maybe there would be a situation wherein this very silence would interrupt this sadness. Which sadness? The sadness that humanity is experiencing or experiences. Okay, so this silence which is demanding its attention, that you've not been taking care of yourself in order to pursue your goals and dreams, and in order to conquer, in order to reach a point, and you've not been taking care of yourself, this very silence would then interrupt like a noise, okay, of never understanding ourselves. Why? And humanity is not about greed, or this is what he's trying to say, or ruling or reaching a point or doing things back to back or one after another, and that of not understanding oneself. Now this silence would then interrupt, okay, would shackle this very sadness that human beings have been avoiding, and of threatening ourselves with death. And perhaps this might, if we do not take enough care of ourselves, and we keep on doing activities which are against nature, against human nature as well, against humanity, perhaps it would also lead us to depression, finally taking us to death, okay, because this is exactly what we have not wanted. Okay, So it could be war, it could be reaching to a point, it could be continuously pursuing our goals without giving time to ourselves. So the thing that we are avoiding, the silence that we are avoiding, would then interrupt and would then threaten us, that if we turn so mechanic, perhaps it would take us to death like situation. If we did not take care of ourselves, it would take us to death like situation. Okay, last, perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you'll keep quiet and I'll go. So here he says that Mother Earth is the greatest teacher of humanity. Why? Because at surface it seems quiet and still, yet it nurtures so much of life within, right? We can take an example of a seed. When a seed is sown, we feel that it is a dead seed and would not give birth to anything. But then it gives birth to plant, to sapling, and that very plant becomes a tree. Okay, so he says we should be like Mother Earth, who's calm and quiet on the surface, but keeps on doing its work and nurturing life. Okay, so he says by initiating this process of introspection, he in a way wants to teach us to take responsibility of spreading this message, while he moves on to initiate this exercise at some another place. Okay, so when he says now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I'll go, he appeals that to each reader to make an individual effort to be calm and then keep on doing great things and nurturing great things, so that one can do something great. He says, and later proves alive. What proves alive? Mother Earth proves alive. Okay, so he says perhaps the earth can teach us, and when everything seems dead. Everything means the surface of the earth seems dead, something sown inside seems dead, just like a seed, and finally it comes to life. Okay, as I told you, the seed becomes the sapling, sapling the plant, and plant the tree. So it says just like at surface it feels Mother Earth is a non-living entity, but at the end we know that it is a living being. It nurtures so many trees, so many homes, so much of humanity. Okay, so he is asking us to be like Mother Earth, which is calm at the surface but doing its duty, performing and nurturing so much of life within. Now he says he'll then count up to 12, and he says that everybody be quiet so that he can spread the message to some other place. So this was the entire core and the crux, and I explained you the figures of speech. Here the figure of speech you may say is personification. Mother Earth is given the human quality of nurturing life. It is a semi-personification, you may say. Okay, so this was the entire thing. I'll be sharing with you the notes and question answers in Naresh sir's classes. Till then, take care.